In the Heat of the Night was released in 1967 and it won Best Picture at the 1968 Academy Awards. It stars Rod Steiger, who also won an Oscar for his performance here, and Sidney Poitier. It was directed by Norman Jewison, who directed one of my favourite films, The Hurricane. This is a director who has a history of making films about racial issues, and not only making films about racial issues, but making good films about racial issues. In the Heat of the Night is certainly no different. It sees a cop from a big city, played by Sidney Poitier, Virgil Tibbs, going to a small town in southern America. It's kind of very racist town, shall we say, and he is essentially arrested on sight pretty much for just being black, as a suspect for a murder. You know, they see him waiting at a train station, boom, he's black, he's obviously the man. They don't realise that he's a cop, and it just so happens to be a very good one as well. He specialises in murder cases. He knows how to look for the evidence, so he's able to teach these people a thing or two. Now, the captain of the police station is played by Rod Steiger, and as I say, he won an Oscar for this. He does deliver a very good performance, but so does Sidney Poitier. Very good film, I must say. Very, very deep film. There's a lot of stuff in here to really delve into, and it seems very much ahead of its time. This is certainly one of the first movies to present racial tensions and racial issues in this way, and also have a black hero who could stand up to the whites on an equal footing. There is a moment in this film where this rich plantation owner, this white guy, slaps Virgil in the face, and instantly Virgil is taking none of it, and he slaps him back, and you really feel that slap. He doesn't hold anything back, and it's a shocking moment, even now. And I gotta say, I would have loved to have been in a cinema screen when this played, at the time that it played, because this film they had to actually postpone the Oscars in which this took place, because it was when Martin Luther King was shot. This is how tense the time was when this was released, you know. So racial tensions were not something that needed to be stirred up, certainly by a film like this. But what this film does do is it takes all these issues and it deals with them in a very mature, realistic way, and it presents this hero, like I say, this Virgil Tibbs, in a very humanistic way. You know, he's not a slave. He's not even an idealistic man in many ways. He suffers from racism, but he also dishes it out. He also has prejudices himself based on white people, you know. So there's a moment during this film, just after that slap, in which he realises this. So yeah, the film isn't afraid to shy away from racism on both sides. When Rod Steiger is first introduced, his character is chewing this gum, and he chews the gum throughout the film, to be honest. But when he's first introduced, it's really quite annoying, because he's just manically chewing this gum, and I just want to rip it out of his mouth and throw it on the floor. But it adds to the annoyance of this character when we first meet him, I guess. Just kind of ignorance of him, I guess, and the arrogance of him. But obviously, this is kind of like a buddy cop movie. This is, I guess, the first buddy cop movie in many ways. These two guys who are at loggerheads throughout most of the film, they eventually kind of come to a place of mutual respect. I do think that, however, when they go to separate ways at the end of the film, I don't feel any sense that these guys would be itching to see each other again. I feel like if they never saw each other again, it wouldn't matter to them either way. I think they've made an impact on each other's lives, but it's not like a Riggs and Murtaugh kind of thing from Lethal Weapon, where you know these guys are now family. You know that if one of them was to pass away or whatever, the other one would feel it. So it's not a buddy cop movie in that sense, but it certainly lays the groundwork for future films such as Lethal Weapon. Another thing that this film has is an excellent score. It's this jazz blues kind of score, and it's done by Quincy Jones, who was himself a black man. And he wasn't really getting a right lot of work in Hollywood. He'd had to fight his way just to do movie scores, and he'd only done a couple of movie scores before this. But what he brings to the score here is authenticity. The musical arrangements feel relevant, you know, and the score is felt throughout this film, and I think it adds to the character of the film. It certainly takes me back there, and it never feels in your face. It's never intrusive in any way, but it really does suck you into that period. Now, there's some songs that appear throughout the film in various places, where it's on jukeboxes or someone's radio, and they wrote those songs. Quincy Jones wrote those songs and you know, arranged them, pieced them together. So all of the music, including the songs, is done by him. They didn't want to use any pop music of the time, any known songs, because they felt like it would take you away from the overall feel that they were trying to get from that movie. And I think it's great because it means that the film doesn't date. It still feels quite contemporary even now. I believe this is a film that was necessary. I believe it was made at a time when, you know, when race issues were absolutely at the height of what was going on in the country, in America at the time. This film couldn't have been more relevant, and I still think it is relevant. Yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5. I think that there are certain things about it that kind of make it feel a little bit rough around the edges. I think the pacing is very slow, could have been tightened up a little bit, and I do feel like towards the end, when we learn the truth about the murder, the truth about who is behind it, it kind of all happens very suddenly, very quick, and it doesn't, you know, we've had this movie in which everything seems to have been drawn out, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just tie it all up and it's done. They're the kind of the criticism that kind of bring it down a little bit for me. But like I say, I've only seen it the once, and I do feel like this is probably a film that will be rewarded on multiple viewings, that will maybe increase in my enjoyment the more that I see it. But yeah, there you go. 4 out of 5, genuine classic, Best Picture Oscar winner. But have you seen it? And if so, what do you think about it? Comment below, let me know, and until next time, thanks for watching.